Grand Assembly Hall stretched for nearly a mile, its ceiling lost in artificial clouds that drifted between massive pillars. 47 different alien species filled the enormous space, their various forms sitting, floating, or standing at designated positions. The air recyclers worked overtime to manage the different atmospheric requirements, creating visible layers of gas that shimmered like heat waves. Admiral stood alone at the center platform. His dark uniform bore no decorations except for a single silver star on each shoulder. Behind him, holographic displays showed the past 3 years of war in brutal detail. Ships exploding, colonies burning, casualty numbers climbing into the millions on both sides. The Galactic Coalition had summoned Earth's representatives to this place. They called it a peace negotiation. Admiral called it what it really was, a demand for surrender. Ambassador sat in the human delegation area, her hands folded calmly in her lap. She had spent 6 months preparing for this moment. 6 months crafting reasonable terms that would end the bloodshed, terms that respected both human sovereignty and galactic stability. She had been naive to hope they would listen. High Arbiter of the Empire rose from his elevated throne. His species looked like a cross between a mantis and a bear, with 4 arms and a massive frame covered in chitinous plates. When he spoke, translation devices converted his clicking language into something humans could understand. The human species has caused great disruption to galactic order, announced. Your expansion into the outer territories violated established claims. Your refusal to join the coalition as a junior member showed disrespect to elder races. Your military resistance has cost lives and resources. Admiral remained still, his face showed nothing. Therefore, continued, the coalition presents these terms for peace. Earth will surrender 80% of its resource extraction to coalition oversight. Your military fleet will be reduced to 10% of current capacity. Coalition governors will be stationed on all major human worlds to ensure compliance. Human vessels will require permits to travel beyond your home system. These terms are non-negotiable. Laughter rippled through the assembly hall. The alien delegations found the generous terms amusing. Some had advocated for complete human extinction. Others wanted humanity reduced to a slave class. Proposal was considered merciful by comparison. General sat beside Ambassador. His jaw tightened as the laughter continued. He had fought in 17 major battles during this war. He had watched good soldiers die because the coalition refused to acknowledge human rights to exist as equals. Now they wanted humanity to thank them for the privilege of servitude. Captain of the 7th Fleet leaned back in her seat, her eyes scanning the alien faces around them. She recognized several species, the who had started border conflicts, the who had fired first on human merchant ships, the collective who had bombarded a human colony without warning. Every species here had committed acts that humans would call war crimes, yet they sat in judgment of humanity. Ambassador rose and approached the center platform. Admiral stepped aside to give her room. She activated her own holographic display. It showed Earth's counter-proposal, fair borders, mutual trade agreements, technology exchange programs, shared defense treaties, everything a reasonable peace would include. The human species seeks only to exist in peace, said. Her voice carried across the vast hall without any amplification. We have defended ourselves when attacked. We have shown restraint when we could have retaliated with full force. We offer cooperation, not domination. We seek partnership, not submission. Response came quickly. Humans have no concept of their place in the natural order. Young species must earn their position through service to their elders. Your existence is permitted by coalition tolerance, not by any right you possess. More laughter. The representative stood and added, perhaps complete resource seizure would teach them humility. 80% is too generous. And delegates suggested humans would make excellent manual labor for industrial worlds. Their adaptability to different environments was a useful trait. Admiral Watch's shoulders sagged slightly. She had believed in the process. She had trusted that reason and diplomacy could prevail. The last bit of that hope died as the aliens discussed humanity's future as if discussing livestock. The Admiral moved forward and placed a hand on shoulder. She looked at him and saw something in his eyes. Permission, authorization, the freedom to stop pretending. Straightened, she deactivated her holographic proposal. When she spoke again, her voice had changed. The diplomatic warmth was gone, replaced by cold finality. Humanity rejects the coalition's terms, she said simply. The laughter stopped, leaned forward on his throne. Rejection means war continues. Your species will be hunted across every system. Your worlds will burn. Humanity withdraws from these negotiations, Admiral added. His voice cut through the silence like a blade. General stood, then Captain, then every member of the human delegation. They moved in formation toward the exit, their movements precise and coordinated. Slammed a massive fist on his throne's armrest. You cannot simply leave. The Coalition has not dismissed you. Admiral stopped at the doorway. He turned back to face the assembled aliens one final time. You offered slavery and called it peace. You demanded submission and called it mercy. Humanity refuses both. We came here to negotiate as equals. Since that is impossible, there is nothing more to discuss. You will regret this decision, threatened. The full might of the Coalition will crush your species. A slight smile touched Admiral's face. It was not a pleasant expression. You've been trying that for 3 years. How has it worked so far? The human delegation walked out. The massive doors closed behind them with a sound like thunder. Inside the assembly hall, confusion reigned. No species had ever walked away from Coalition peace terms before. The aliens had expected rage or desperation or even pleading. They had not expected calm refusal. They will return, one delegate said. Humans are emotional creatures. They will realize their mistake. But stared at the closed doors with growing unease. He had studied human military tactics during the war. They never acted on emotion in battle. Every move was calculated. Every sacrifice strategic. If the humans walked away from peace, it meant they had already planned for this possibility. Send scouts to human space, ordered. I want to know what they are doing, immediately. Outside, the human delegation boarded their shuttle in silence. Only when the door sealed and they were safely away from listening devices did anyone speak. The fleets are ready, General asked. Admiral nodded. Operation Exodus begins in 6 hours. By the time they realize what is happening, it will be too late to stop us. Ambassador looked out the viewport at the massive Coalition station. They will follow us. Let them try, Captain said quietly. They have no idea what is coming. The shuttle accelerated away from the station, heading toward the jump point that would take them home. Behind them, the Galactic Coalition celebrated what they thought was victory. Ahead of them, humanity prepared to show the galaxy what happened when you forced Earth's children to choose between surrender and freedom. They had chosen freedom, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Coalition Council chamber buzzed with satisfaction 3 days after the humans walked out. High Arbiter stood before a holographic model of human space, explaining his victory to the assembled delegates. Their withdrawal proves human weakness, he declared. They cannot sustain military operations without Coalition resources. Within weeks, they will return begging for any terms we offer. The representative agreed enthusiastically. My analysts predict complete human collapse within 1 solar cycle. Their economy depends on galactic trade routes we control. Had already commissioned victory monuments on 3 worlds. Artists were designing sculptures showing Coalition forces bringing order to human space. The archives were being updated to record this moment as the final proof of Coalition superiority. Fleet Masterin, commander of the military, presented invasion plans for Earth's solar system. His strategy was simple and brutal. Overwhelming force deployed simultaneously at every human colony. Quick strikes to destroy military capability before humans could organize resistance. The war would be over in months. What none of them understood was that humanity had never been losing the war. They had been studying. Commander sat in a secure facility 300 light-years from Earth. Screens surrounded him, each displaying real-time intelligence from deep inside Coalition space. Human agents had spent 3 years infiltrating every level of alien society. They knew troop movements before Coalition generals did. They had access to communication networks. They had mapped every important location in Coalition territory. Activated the quantum transmitter. His message went out on every frequency the Coalition used, encrypted so only their leaders could decode it. The message was simple, a complete list of every Coalition military base, supply depot, shipyard, and command center, precise coordinates, defense capabilities, garrison strengths, everything. Below the intelligence data added 1 line. You want to know what humanity learned during our war. Here is your answer. We learned everything about you. On Earth, Dr. Sora stood in a command center buried 2 miles beneath the Antarctic ice. Around her, thousands of technicians monitored the largest secret project in human history, the Exodus Protocol. All colony ships report ready status, one technician announced. Dr. Sora took a deep breath. Humanity was about to scatter like seeds on the solar wind. Thousands of ships, each carrying tens of thousands of people. Not refugees running in fear, but pioneers claiming their destiny. They had destinations already selected, systems too remote for Coalition control, worlds harsh enough that only human determination could tame them. Initiate Exodus Protocol, Dr. Sora ordered. All ships are authorized for immediate departure. Cross human space, massive vessels emerged from hiding. They had been built in secret over decades, constructed in asteroid fields and in the dark spaces between planets. The Coalition scouts had somehow missed 3,000 massive colony ships. It seemed impossible. It was meant to seem impossible. But while Coalition attention focused on human military fleets, the civilian evacuation had proceeded unnoticed. Now those ships engaged their drives and jumped toward coordinates unknown to any database the Coalition could access. Engineer watched the colony ships depart from her station above Mars. Then she activated her own orders, the Scorched Stars Initiative. All facilities confirm, her assistant reported. Demolition team standing by. Had spent 2 years preparing for this moment. Every human-built station in Coalition-claimed space, every factory, research center, and mining operation, every piece of infrastructure that aliens thought they would inherit, all of it was rigged with charges, programmed with viruses, set to collapse. Execute Scorched Stars, said quietly. One by one, human facilities self-destructed. Not violently. There were no massive explosions that would harm nearby aliens. Instead, fusion reactors went into controlled shutdowns that would take decades to reverse. Data cores wiped themselves using quantum erasure protocols that destroyed information at the atomic level. Manufacturing equipment received commands that made critical components melt from the inside. Shipyards that had built vessels for both humans and aliens suddenly found their construction bays fused into useless metal. Medical research stations deleted centuries of breakthrough data. Agricultural facilities released bioengineered organisms that would render the land useless for farming for generations. The Coalition received frantic reports from every territory where humans had established presence. Everything was breaking down simultaneously. Tech support calls went unanswered. Human experts had already left. Maintenance schedules meant nothing when the systems being maintained no longer existed. Andre received the intelligence package from Commander. His satisfaction turned to cold fear as he realized what the data meant. Humans knew everything, every secret location, every classified base, every hidden weapon stockpile. The entire war, humans had been gathering information while the Coalition assumed they were simply fighting for survival. How did they get this? Demanded. His military advisors had no answers. Human spies, impossible alien biology would make humans stand out, advanced sensors. The Coalition had the best technology. It didn't make sense. The truth was simpler than imagined. Humans had just asked questions and paid attention. They noticed patterns in ship movements. They tracked supply deliveries. They listened to soldiers in bars bragging about classified postings. Basic intelligence work that the Coalition never bothered to defend against because they never imagined primitive humans could pose a threat. Fleet Master tried to mobilize forces to pursue the colony ships. He discovered half his fleet couldn't move. Human technicians had maintained Coalition vessels for years. Those same technicians had installed remote access codes in critical systems. Now Coalition ships found their navigation systems offline. Weapons platforms refused to power up. Even basic life support showed failures. How long to repair? Asked his engineering chief. Without human expertise, months, maybe years for some systems. Admiral broadcast a message from his flagship as it jumped toward unknown coordinates. The message played on every screen in Coalition space. His image appeared, calm, professional, almost gentle. The Galactic Coalition demanded our submission. We offered peace as equals and you called it insolence. So we choose a third option. Humanity is leaving. We are taking our skills, our knowledge, our innovation, and our labor. We are taking every contribution we ever made to galactic civilization. What we built, we are destroying rather than leave it for you. The Admiral paused, letting his words sink in. You wanted us gone, we are granting your wish. But understand this, you did not drive us away. We chose to leave because building something new is better than existing in chains. The galaxy you rule is now your responsibility alone. Manage it without us. The transmission ended. Emergency Coalition Council meetings accomplished nothing. Some delegates suggested negotiating with the departing humans. Others wanted immediate military action, tried to maintain authority, but his voice carried less weight with each report of another system failure. The representative finally spoke the thought everyone was avoiding. What if we need them? What if human contributions were more important than we realized? Silence filled the council chamber. Then denials erupted from every delegate. Of course, they didn't need humans. The Coalition had managed the galaxy before Earth even discovered space travel. This was temporary chaos. Systems would be rebuilt. New arrangements would be made. But in the back of his mind, doubt crept in. He thought about the 3 years of war. The Coalition had every advantage, more ships, more weapons, more resources. Yet humanity had fought them to a standstill. Now humans were leaving, taking with them something the coalition hadn't properly valued: knowledge, innovation, the ability to solve problems in unexpected ways. A plague that human doctors had helped contain suddenly flared up again. Human-designed medical equipment stopped working. The doctors who understood the treatments were gone. Within days, the outbreak spread to 6 different worlds. Trade routes that human merchants had maintained descended into chaos. Pirates attacked cargo ships because coalition patrols were too busy with internal problems. Deliveries stopped. Shortages appeared. It had only been 1 week since humanity walked out of peace negotiations. Already, cracks appeared in the coalition's perfect order. Stared at reports streaming across his desk. Each one detailed another problem, another system that relied on human expertise, another crisis that human solutions had previously managed. He had thought humans were dependents in the galactic community. He was beginning to understand that it was the coalition who had become dependent on them. And now humanity was gone, scattering to distant stars where coalition power could not reach them, taking with them the very things that had held the galaxy together. 6 months had passed since humanity walked away. The Galactic Coalition was dying, though most delegates still refused to admit it. Stood in what remained of the council chamber. Only 20 of the original 47 species still sent representatives. The others were too busy dealing with internal crises. The Federation faced riots on 12 colonies. The collective had lost contact with 3 entire sectors. Trade had collapsed to levels not seen in centuries. The human plague continues to spread, reported the medical coordinator, a being that resembled a floating jellyfish. Without human-developed antivirals, we cannot contain it. Death count has reached 40 million across coalition space. Slammed his fist on the table, cracking the stone surface. Find alternatives. There must be other solutions. But there weren't. Humans had revolutionized galactic medicine over their brief time in space. Their unique perspective, being one of the few species that evolved fighting millions of different diseases, had led to breakthroughs no other race achieved. Now those breakthroughs were gone, and the diseases humans had helped contain were running wild. Fleet Admiral watched the chaos from his command ship, floating in dark space between star systems. His fleet of 200 vessels operated like ghosts, appearing on long-range sensors only when they wanted to be seen. The rest of humanity's military had scattered with the colony ships, protecting the Exodus, but his volunteers had stayed behind with a different mission. Coalition supply convoy detected, his sensor officer reported, heading from territory toward the frontier. How many escorts? Asked. 3 warships, heavy class. Smiled. Heavy class meant they were slow. Coalition military doctrine relied on overwhelming firepower and thick armor. Human doctrine had evolved differently during the war: speed, precision, strike and vanish. Execute Wraith Protocol, he ordered. His ships activated stealth systems that human engineers had spent years perfecting. To coalition sensors, the human fleet simply disappeared. They moved into position along the supply convoy's route and waited. The convoy never stood a chance. Human ships materialized from nowhere, launched missiles at the cargo vessels, and jumped away before coalition warships could return fire. The escorts found themselves protecting wreckage. By the time they oriented toward where the humans had been, fleet was already light years away. Captain led another cell of human ships operating near the border. His specialty was different from while destroyed supplies destroyed morale. His ships broadcasted on all frequencies, showing recordings of coalition leaders laughing during the peace negotiations, showing the moment demanded humanity's enslavement, showing the contempt and arrogance that aliens had displayed. Below each recording, added captions: "This is what your leaders think of cooperation. This is how they treat species seeking peace." Specialist worked from a hidden base in an asteroid field, coordinating psychological operations. She had been a professor of alien cultures before the war. Now, she used that knowledge to tear coalition unity apart. She sent messages to the people, reminding them how traders had exploited their economy for decades. She contacted colonies, explaining how coalition taxes enriched while outlying territories starved. She reached out to a dozen minor species, revealing documents that proved coalition leaders had classified them as expendable during war planning. "Truth is the best weapon," told her team. "These species cooperated because they thought the coalition benefited everyone. We just show them reality." Received reports that rebellion was brewing in the outer territories. Species that had been loyal coalition members for generations were demanding independence. They had seen how humanity stood up to the coalition and survived. If humans could walk away, why couldn't they? An emergency council session was called. The remaining delegates gathered to discuss the crisis. But without humans to maintain the Council's advanced systems, half the translation equipment didn't work properly. Arguments erupted because delegates couldn't understand each other. Accusations flew. Ancient rivalries that the coalition had suppressed for centuries came roaring back. The representative accused the of hoarding medical resources. The delegate claimed both species had stolen technology that rightfully belonged to others. Minor species that had never dared speak up before now demanded justice for past grievances. Tried to restore order but found his authority crumbling. He had been High Arbiter because the coalition needed someone to maintain peace between fractious species, but peace required prosperity and stability. Both were evaporating. Perhaps we should contact the humans, suggested a delegate from a small species called the Negotiate New Terms. Never, roared. The coalition does not beg to primitives. Then the coalition will die, the delegate said quietly. Choose pride or survival. You cannot have both. Counselor received the coalition's first official peace feeler 3 weeks later. She was serving as humanity's chief negotiator with other species, not the coalition, but the smaller races that were breaking away. When the coalition's encrypted message came through, she read it twice to make sure she understood correctly. They wanted to talk. They offered revised terms for human reintegration into galactic society. They promised better conditions than before. Recorded her response carefully. She chose each word to cause maximum impact. Coalition had its chance for peace. Humanity offered friendship and received demands for submission. Now we are building something better. We have found new allies among species your coalition oppressed. We have established trade networks that function on respect rather than exploitation. We have colonies thriving in systems you never bothered to explore because they seem too difficult. Difficulty does not frighten humans. We were forged by a harsh world, and we make homes in places you call impossible. She paused, letting that sink in, then continued. You are not invited to what we are building. You taught us that some governments are too corrupt to reform, so we started over. The galaxy you ruled is collapsing because it was built on dominance, not cooperation. Let it fall. We will be here afterward, ready to help the species that survive learn a better way. The message ended there. Sent it and went back to work. She had meetings scheduled with 3 different species that wanted to join humanity's growing alliance. Real meetings between equals, discussing mutual benefit. Watched message 3 times. His medical advisors told him the plague would kill 1 billion beings within the year without human help. His economic advisors said the coalition was entering a depression that would take decades to recover from. His military advisors admitted that human tactics had made coalition supply lines impossible to protect. Pride or survival, the delegate's words echoed in his mind. General was analyzing coalition military communications from a secure facility. Human intelligence had not stopped gathering data just because they left coalition space. Now that information served a different purpose, ensuring the coalition couldn't threaten humanity's new colonies. They are planning something, told the command staff. Fleet movements suggest preparation for a major operation, mobilization orders to 6 different battle groups. Admiral listened to the report with his eyes closed. They are going to try to force us back. One final military push to make us return to negotiations from a position of weakness. Can they succeed? Someone asked. Opened his eyes. No, they still don't understand what they are fighting. They see military vessels and think that is our strength. But our strength is our people. Every colonist who lands on a harsh world and builds a home. Every engineer who solves problems without proper equipment. Every farmer who grows food in alien soil. The coalition sees weakness where we see human determination. He activated the communication system. Begin operation preparations. If they want to attack our colonies, they will learn why humanity does not surrender, not to threats, not to force, not ever. Across human space, military commanders received their orders. They had been expecting this. Some aliens learned from mistakes, but some, like the coalition, had to learn the hard way. The trap was set. The coalition just had to be arrogant enough to walk into it. Given their track record, was confident they would not disappoint. 1 year after the walkout, the galaxy looked completely different. The Galactic Coalition existed only in name. Member species fought among themselves, hoarded resources, and abandoned centuries of cooperation in desperate attempts to survive the chaos. Captain guided his ship toward a small moon orbiting a gas giant in unclaimed space. His vessel carried no weapons, only cargo holds filled with food, medicine, and basic technology. 3 other ships followed in formation, all displaying the new emblem that humanity had adopted. A simple circle with a hand extended in friendship. On the moon's surface, the species waited. They had been one of the coalition's weakest members, providing labor and resources while receiving minimal protection or support. When the coalition collapsed, they found themselves abandoned with failing infrastructure and no ability to sustain themselves. Landed his ship and opened the cargo bay. Workers approached cautiously. They had expected demands, conditions, the usual exploitation they had experienced under coalition rule. Instead, simply started unloading supplies. "This is a gift," he explained through a translator. "No payment required. Humanity remembers what it feels like to be treated as lesser. We will not do that to others." The colony leader, a small being with 6 limbs and large eyes, stared at the human captain. "Why help us? What do you gain?" Smiled. "Maybe someday you will help someone else who needs it. That is enough gain for us. But if you want formal arrangements, humanity is forming a new alliance. Not like the coalition. Something better. Members are equal partners. Decisions are made together. Technology and resources are shared fairly. Would your people be interested?" Within 3 days, they became the 8th species to join humanity's Commonwealth. They were not the last. Ambassador had meetings scheduled every day for weeks. Species came asking about this new alliance that treated everyone as equals. Some were skeptical, having lived under coalition domination for so long that they couldn't imagine a different system. Others were eager, having dreamed of freedom but never believing it possible. Met with each delegation personally. She explained the Commonwealth's principles: mutual defense, fair trade, shared technology development, democratic decision-making where each species had equal voice regardless of size or power. The strong protected the weak not for exploitation, but because it was right. "The coalition will never allow this," one delegate warned. "They will see the Commonwealth as a threat." "The coalition is dying," replied gently. "They destroyed themselves through arrogance and greed. We are not building something to oppose them. We are building something to replace them, something better that will still be here long after the coalition is forgotten." General reviewed intelligence reports with growing concern. The coalition's military movements were becoming more aggressive. Fleet Master and had assembled the largest battle group in coalition history, over 1,000 warships drawing from every member species that still answered coalition commands. "They are coming," told the Commonwealth Military Council. "Target appears to be the colony. It is our and least defended settlement. They think if they can destroy it, they will demonstrate that the Commonwealth cannot protect its members." Admiral studied the tactical displays. Colony had 12,000 civilians, mostly human with some families who had relocated there. The colony's defenses consisted of 6 patrol ships and orbital defense platforms still under construction. Against 1,000 warships should have been helpless. "Activate operation," ordered. "Send a message to all Commonwealth members. Tell them this is the moment we prove that our alliance means something. An attack on one is an attack on all." Director Minu ran the Commonwealth's intelligence service. While the coalition thought they were preparing a surprise attack, Minu's agents had tracked every ship movement, every supply transfer, every communication. He knew the coalition battle plan better than most coalition officers. "They will jump into the system in 3 waves, Minu explained. "First wave to disable defenses, second wave to deploy ground forces, third wave to occupy and hold the colony. Standard coalition doctrine, overwhelming force applied systematically." "And they have no idea we know this," said. "None. They still use the same communication encryption we broke during the war. They never changed it because admitting humans had cracked it would be embarrassing." Allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Coalition pride would be their downfall, again. On colony, evacuation proceeded calmly. Civilians boarded transport ships in organized groups. No panic, no chaos. Humans had learned during Earth's history that preparation and discipline saved lives. They taught these lessons to their new Commonwealth allies. But the colony itself was not abandoned. Instead, thousands of automated systems activated. Drones moved into position. Sensor networks deployed. Weapons platforms that appeared partially constructed suddenly came online. They had been finished for weeks, just camouflaged to look incomplete. And hidden in the asteroid belt surrounding, 300 Commonwealth warships waited in absolute silence. Humans and 8 other species crews working together. They had been there for days, powered down, invisible to long-range scans. The coalition fleet jumped into the system expecting an easy victory. Fleet Master and reviewed the sensor data with satisfaction. Only 6 human patrol ships, minimal orbital defenses. The colony would fall within hours. "All ships advance," he ordered. "First wave engage defensive positions." The coalition fleet moved forward in perfect formation. They had done this dozens of times to dozens of worlds. It was routine. Then the asteroids lit up with engine signatures. Hundreds of ships materialized from what coalition sensors had registered as dead rocks. They had been sitting there, waiting, completely undetected. Ambush, someone shouted on the coalition command frequency. Admiral broadcast on all channels. You came to destroy a Commonwealth colony. You came to prove that might makes right. Let us teach you what Commonwealth membership means. The battle was unlike anything the coalition had experienced. Their 1,000 ships should have overwhelmed 300 defenders, but the Commonwealth fleet fought with coordination the coalition could not match. Human tactical doctrine combined with sensor capabilities and technological contributions from 8 other species created something greater than the sum of parts. And the Commonwealth did not fight to destroy, they fought to disable. Electromagnetic pulse weapons knocked out coalition ships without killing crews. Cyber attacks locked down weapon systems. Tractor beams captured disabled vessels before they could self-destruct. Within 2 hours, Fleet Master found his own command ship surrounded and helpless. His weapons would not fire. His engines would not respond. He could only watch as Commonwealth Marines boarded coalition vessels not to slaughter but to secure. Commander's face appeared on every coalition ship's screen. Your attack has failed. Your ships are disabled. Your crews are alive because we chose mercy. This is the difference between the Commonwealth and the coalition. You kill to take, we disable to protect. He paused, letting the humiliation sink into coalition commanders. Your crews will be returned to coalition space unharmed. Your ships will be kept as restitution for the attack. Tell your leaders what happened here. Tell them the Commonwealth is not weak. Tell them we will defend our people. And tell them that every species watching this battle now knows the coalition cannot protect its interests, but the Commonwealth can protect its members. And slumped in his command chair, the war was over. The coalition was over. They had lost not to superior weapons but to a superior idea. Unity based on respect defeated hierarchy based on force. Back at Commonwealth headquarters, Ambassador received 43 requests for membership in the next week. Species that had watched the battle have wanted to join an alliance that actually protected its members. The coalition's final gamble had backfired completely. They tried to prove the Commonwealth was weak. Instead, they proved it was strong. They tried to intimidate species into staying loyal. Instead, they drove them toward the only alliance that seemed to offer real security. Watched reports of the defeat with empty eyes. It was over. Everything the coalition had built over was collapsing, and all because they had treated one species with contempt instead of respect. Pride or survival? He had chosen pride, now he would pay the price. 5 years had passed since humanity walked away from the coalition's peace talks. The galaxy had transformed completely in that time. The Galactic Coalition formally dissolved on a cold morning in what would have been their 642nd year of operation. Only 12 species sent representatives to the final session. They signed documents acknowledging the end, divided remaining assets, and departed without ceremony. The Grand Assembly Hall where had once laughed at humanity's peace proposal now stood empty. Himself was dead, killed by his own people after the defeat at. The empire had fractured into 17 separate governments, each blaming the others for the disaster. Some had applied for Commonwealth membership. Others struggled alone, proud to the end. Dr. Sora stood on the surface of New Terra, the first permanent colony in what was now called the Commonwealth sector. The world had been classified as uninhabitable by coalition standards, too cold, atmosphere too thin, gravity slightly too high. But humans had looked at it and seen potential instead of problems. Now New Terra had a population of 3 million. Humans and 24 other species lived in underground cities with artificial environments tailored to each species' needs. The surface was being slowly terraformed using techniques human engineers developed. In another 50 years, it would have a breathable atmosphere. This is the capital, Sora said to the visiting delegation from what remained of the Federation. This is where we prove that cooperation works better than domination. The representative looked uncomfortable. Her species had laughed loudest at humanity's peace proposal 5 years ago. Now they were begging for help. The plague that human doctors had once contained was ravaging worlds. Their economy had collapsed. Civil war threatened. We need medical assistance, the representative said quietly. Our people are dying. Dr. Sora nodded. The Commonwealth provides humanitarian aid to any species that requests it. No conditions, no demands for submission. We help because it is right. But our government supported the coalition against you. We voted for the terms that would have enslaved humanity. Your government did that, Sora agreed. Not your people. Individuals should not suffer for their leaders' mistakes. Commonwealth medical ships will be dispatched immediately. The representative began to cry. The translator struggled to convey the emotion. Why? After what we did to you, why help us? Sora smiled gently. Because we remember what we offered 5 years ago. Peace as equals. We still believe in that even if you did not. We will not become what you were. Breaking that cycle is how we make the galaxy better. Admiral reviewed the Commonwealth fleet from his flagship. 3,000 vessels now, representing 46 different species. Not all were warships, most were science vessels, medical frigates, cargo haulers, and colony support craft. The Commonwealth did not exist to conquer. It existed to explore, help, and grow. But the military existed too, because some species still believed in domination rather than cooperation. The Commonwealth had learned that peace required strength to protect it. "Sir, we have incoming transmission from the third state," his communication officer reported. "They are requesting diplomatic channels." Considered, the third state was one of the 17 fragments of the old empire. They had refused Commonwealth membership, insisting they would rebuild glory without alien help. Now they were calling. "Put them through." A face appeared on screen, not arrogant-like but tired and desperate. "I am regent or of the third state. I am authorized to discuss peace terms." "The Commonwealth does not have enemies," replied. "Only potential friends we have not made yet. What do you need?" "Everything," or admitted. "Our infrastructure is failing, our people starve, our colonies are abandoned, the plague spreads unchecked. We need help, but we have nothing to offer in return." "Help is not a transaction," said. "It is what civilized beings do for each other. Apply for humanitarian assistance through proper channels. The Commonwealth will evaluate your needs and provide aid. And in return, we ask nothing. But if you want to give something, consider this. Teach your children that arrogance led to your empire's fall. Teach them that cooperation builds what domination destroys. Teach them the difference between strength and cruelty. That would be payment enough." Or was silent for a long moment. "My generation failed the galaxy. Perhaps the next will do better." The transmission ended. Ambassador stood before the Commonwealth Assembly, where representatives from 46 species gathered to make decisions about their shared future. The chamber was designed so no species sat higher than another. No thrones, no elevated positions. Everyone equal. "Today we face a question that will define what the Commonwealth becomes," began. 32 species have applied for membership in the past year. Many were coalition members who opposed us. Some fought against us They come now because they need help. Do we accept them? The debate lasted hours. Some species argued that former coalition members should be punished for their past actions. Others said the Commonwealth's principles meant accepting anyone who agreed to live by them, regardless of history. The representative spoke quietly but clearly. "I remember when humanity came to my people, we had nothing. We had sided with the coalition against you because we feared the alternative. You could have left us to die. Instead, you helped us. If the Commonwealth excludes people for past mistakes, then they should not be here. But we are here because humanity believes in forgiveness and second chances. I vote to extend that to others." The final vote was not close. 39 species voted to accept applications from former coalition members. 7 abstained. None voted against. Felt tears in her eyes. This was what they had built, something better. On what had been a young scholar named Al studied the historical records of the coalition's fall. She had been a child when it happened, but now she wanted to understand. Her dissertation was titled "The Peace That Was Refused: How Arrogance Destroyed the Coalition." She reviewed the original video from the peace negotiation, watched dismissive response to humanity's fair terms, saw the laughter from delegates as they discussed enslaving an entire species, witnessed Admiral's calm statement that humanity was withdrawing from negotiation. Al wrote in her conclusion, "The coalition fell not because humanity was strong, but because the coalition was weak in character, in wisdom and understanding. They believed power came from domination. Humanity proved that true power comes from cooperation. When given a choice between ruling as masters or standing as equals, humanity chose equality. When the coalition tried to force them into submission, humanity simply walked away and built something better." The lesson for future generations is clear. Civilization is measured not by how well you rule others, but by how well you stand beside them. Her dissertation became required reading in schools throughout the new Commonwealth. Even species that were not members studied it. The historical moment when one species walked away from an unjust peace and changed the galaxy forever. Ambassador met with the last of the coalition's original 47 species. They had all applied for Commonwealth membership or humanitarian assistance. Most had been accepted, with transition plans to integrate them into a government that respected member autonomy while requiring common standards of behavior. The final applicant was the collective, who had bombarded a human colony at the start of the war. Their representative approached with visible shame. "We have no right to ask for mercy," they said. "We killed your people without warning. We supported your enslavement. We fought against you at. Why would you allow us to join your commonwealth?" Looked at the alien with compassion. "Because the commonwealth is not about revenge. It is about building a better future. Your government made terrible choices, but your people, your children, your civilians who had no voice in those decisions, they deserve a chance at that better future. We accept your application on one condition. You must acknowledge what was done, teach the truth to your children, and commit to never repeating those mistakes." "We agree," they said quietly, "and we will spend generations earning your trust." That evening stood with Admiral, General, and Dr. Sora at a memorial on New Terra. It honored those who died during the war and the difficult years that followed. Human names were carved alongside, and members of 24 other species who had sacrificed for the dream of a better galaxy. "We did it," Sora said quietly. "We actually did it." Nodded. "We offered them peace as equals. They refused, so we built peace without them. Now they come asking to join what we created." "Do you think it will last?" asked. "Nothing lasts forever," replied. "But we have built something strong, something based on the idea that every species has value, every voice matters. That strength comes from unity, not domination. As long as we remember why we walked away from their peace talks, as long as we remember that dignity matters more than submission, it will endure." Above them, ships from 46 different species moved through New Terra's orbit. Cargo vessels sharing food and resources. Medical ships heading to assist species still recovering from the Coalition's collapse. Science vessels preparing to explore unknown regions together. Military craft protecting them all. The Commonwealth was not perfect. Disagreements happened. Cultures clashed. Solutions had to be negotiated rather than imposed. It was messy and complicated and sometimes frustrating. But it was built on respect, on cooperation, on the revolutionary idea that different species could stand together as equals. 5 years ago, humanity had walked away from peace talks because the alternative was slavery. Today, they had built something the old coalition never imagined possible. A galaxy where peace meant partnership, where diversity was strength, and where every species had a voice. Admiral looked at the stars and smiled. They had walked away from the galaxy the coalition offered, and in doing so, they had created a better one.